Jackson Pollock. This is by far probably one of my favorite artists. Paul Jackson Pollock, known as Jackson Pollock, was an influential American painter and a major figure in the abstract expressionist movement. He was well known for his uniquely defined style of drip painting. During his lifetime, Pollock enjoyed considerable fame and notoriety. He was regarded as a mostly reclusive artist. He had a volatile personality and struggled with alcoholism most of his life. In 1945, he married the artist Lee Krasner, who became an important influence on his career and on his legacy. Pollock died at the age of 44 in an alcohol-related car accident. In December of 1956, the year of his death, he was given a memorial retrospective exhibition at the Museum of Modern Art in New York City, and a large, more comprehensive exhibition there in 1967. More recently, in 1998 and 1999, his work was honored with large-scale retrospective exhibitions at the Modern Art Museum and at the Tate in London. In 2000, Pollock was the subject of an Academy Award-winning film, Pollock, directed by Ed Harris. Pollock was born in Cody, Wyoming in 1912, the youngest of 5 sons. His parents, Stella Mae and Leroy Pollock, grew up in Tingley, Iowa. His father had been born McCoy, but took the surname of his neighbors, who adopted him after his own parents had died within a year after each other. Stella and Leroy Pollock were Presbyterian, the former of Irish descendants, the latter of Scottish descendants. Leroy Pollock was a farmer and later a land surveyor for the government. Jackson grew up in Arizona and in Chico, California. While living in Echo Park, California, he enrolled at Los Angeles Manual Arts High School, from which he was expelled. And that's after being expelled from another high school. During his early life, he experienced Native American culture while on surveying trips with his father. In 1930, following his brother Charles Pollock, he moved to New York City, where they both studied under Thomas Hart Benton at the Art Students League of New York. Benton's rural American subject matter shaped Pollock's work only fleetingly, but his rhythmic use of paint and his fierce independence were more lasting influences. From 1938 to 1942, Pollock worked on the WPA Federal Art Project. In attempts to fight his alcoholism from 1938 to 1941, Pollock underwent Jungian psychotherapy with Dr. Joseph Henderson and later with Dr. Violet Stubb de Laszlo. Henderson made the decision to engage him through his art and had Pollock make drawings, which led to the appearance of many Jungian concepts in his paintings. Recently, it has been hypothesized that Pollock might have had bipolar disorder. In October of 1945, Pollock married American painter Lee Krasner, and in November they moved to what is known as the Pollock-Krasner House and Studio. Peggy Guggenheim lent them the down payment for the wood frame house, with a nearby barn that Pollock converted into a studio. There he perfected the technique of working with paint, with which he would become permanently identified. Pollock was introduced to the use of liquid paint in 1936 at an experimental workshop operated in New York City by the Mexican muralist David Alfaro Cisqueros. He later used paint pouring as one of several techniques on canvases of the early 1940s, such as male and female and composition with pouring. After his move to Springs, he began painting with his canvases laid out on the studio floor. and he developed what was later called his drip technique, turning a synthetic resin-based paint called alkyd enamels, which at the time was a novel medium. Pollock described this use of household paints instead of artist paints as a natural growth out of a need. He used hardened brushes, sticks, and even basting syringes as paint applicators. Pollock's technique of pouring and dripping paint is thought to be one of the origins of the term action painting. With this technique, Pollock was able to achieve a more immediate means of creating art, the paint now literally flowing from his chosen tool onto the canvas. By defying the conventions of paintings on an upright surface, he added a new dimension by being able to view and apply paint to his canvases from all directions. One possible influence on Pollock was the work of the Ukrainian-American artist Jeanette Sobel. Sobel's work is related to the so-called drip paintings of Jackson Pollock. Peggy Guggenheim included Sobel's work in her The Art of the Century gallery in 1945. The critic Clement Greenberg, with Jackson Pollock, saw Sobel's work there in 1946, and in his essay American Type Paintings, Greenberg cited those work as the first instances of all-over painting he had seen, stating that Jackson Pollock admitted that these pictures had made an impression on him. In the process of making paintings in this way, he moved away from the figurative representation and challenged the Western tradition of using easel and brush. He also moved away from the use of only the hand and wrist, since he used his whole body to paint. In 1956, Time magazine dubbed Pollock Jack the Dripper, and as a result of his unique painting style. My painting does not come from the easel. I prefer to tack the unstretched canvas to the hard wall or the floor. I need the resistance of a hard surface. On the floor, I am more at ease. I feel nearer, more part of the painting, since this way I can walk around it, work from the four sides, and literally be in the painting. I continue to get further away from the usual painter tools such as easel, palette, brushes, etc. I prefer sticks, trowels, knives, and dripping fluid paint on a heavy impasto with sand, broken glass, or other foreign matter added. When I am in my paintings, I am not aware of what I'm doing. It is only after a sort of get acquainted period that I see what I have been about. I have no fear of making changes, destroying the image, etc., because the painting has a life of its own. I try to let it come through, and it is only when I lose contact with the painting that the result is a mess. Otherwise, there is pure harmony, an easy give and take, and the painting comes out well. Jackson Pollock, 1956.